Well, friends, I'm back again. This is Peter Cola. I have been. You've seen me probably on Nino's Corner, and if not, maybe you've also read my blog, paulerpeter.com. I I write mainly about applying mind, body, and spiritual practices to the healthcare scenario and how it may positively affect you. I talk about those things, or at least I try to incorporate them into my writings and somehow, as it were, try to tie it to the things that are going on these days with these videos. But first, I do have a couple of books that I've written. And since we don't have any kind of monetization, it would be really nice if you'd support us by either subscribing to this channel or maybe sharing it. That would be nice too. You could share it with anybody you like. You could join us on Telegram. That's also paulerpeter.com or paulerpeter. We also have our, of course, this YouTube, which is Peter and Anna Cola. That's my wife, Anna. This is our book, Heal Yourself for God's Sake. That's the one where I wrote about many experiences that I had after placing God into the treatment scenario. And second one was called Quantum Ascension, where I asked God, how exactly does it work, or what it means, and he told me. So I wrote it down. Anyways, I'm going to have a little drink of my coffee because it's early. And today, or actually one I wrote yesterday, but only finished it this morning so that I could publish it and record it, I'm calling this report today the jab. They're forcing you to take it. Worse yet, they're forcing you to dispense it. Fear of man. All right, let's get right to it. Another day, another long watch in the old foxhole, in the small corner of the war, my own little hill to guard, or the few unexpected villagers who still remain unaware that the enemy is not far off, waiting like some little bobble-headed dog in the back window of some car, wallowing in their removed hamlet, still needing to be told the truth. And unlike a breastfed 10-year-old too afraid to dispel football, let alone play it, what is that sound, that constant thunder, that deep beating, massive, distant drum, the mortar shells sounding constantly, yet so definitely distant, like a booming one after another. Only the softest flash of light that alerts someone that maybe that's the end times war out there in the distance. And it's not just another summer rainstorm, including some far-off lightning strikes. It sure has been raining a lot lately, and a lot of thunder. The question is posed and more of a warning than a request, asking desperately of this writer, who happens to know Nino, and may occasionally have his ear, or his text, to report to him regarding some ongoing and increasing pushes of the insurance-owned healthcare companies are doing. This woman has been calling us and pleading that we report this, forcing many of their employees not only to take the vaccine themselves, but press it onto others in forced vaccination scenario, especially with the increasingly younger people, even trekking off to the border to vaccinate people, some south of the border. Many of those have no particular interest to come north, the majority actually being young children. And I look at my young wife, Anna, and her pleading eyes as she brings more intel. So she fervently gathers these stuff from all over the world. And in this case, this healthcare university staff member, a nurse, a patriot, actually one of our own, Nino's insiders of my own state. My first thought and question that follows, not as much as an actual question, but more, what does she expect Nino to do about it? People who read the articles or have heard me speak realize by now that I'm a licensed healthcare provider, experienced in literally practicing, evaluating, and treating, that kind of experience, treating thousands with every ailment from the addiction of arthritis to the Zika virus and everything in between, including many considered untreatable cancer, autism, anxiety attacks, some so rare I had to look them up first to see what they were. But the other thing that people have come to know is my desire to place God back into the healthcare treatment regimen, and why. And the consequential things that I saw in the result, what I witnessed, learned, the gifts gained that I've tried over at least the last 15 years to share with others. That's what I do. But I can tell you without the sprinkling of hesitation is that whenever I did do this, pass on these truths, learned to patients, families, friends, colleagues, as soon as the name Jesus was mentioned, or even the smallest apparent evidence that the healing actually could happen, a contract would be removed, a patient would be taken away from me under threat of losing their benefits or insurance altogether, jobs lost, pay lost. When these issues didn't stop us, our entire practice was closed up from under us with the threat of bulldozing the building. And of course, when you don't like it, you can sue them. They always say that, hey, if you don't like it, sue us. We have more money than you. Take us to court. We can't wait. We'll sue you and sue you and sue you till you're broke. Yeah, we'll see. When they couldn't stop us from continually speaking the truth, yeah, sure, they could shut off all sources of funding they had access to, and they did. The banks, insurance companies. But what they couldn't do is shut off our sources that they did not have access to. And we, in essence, went on Jesus's payroll and have been ever since, basically having all we needed to sustain us. And that is absolutely true. The attacks don't suddenly stop only with the financial. If they can't get you with one attack through one window, they'll attack you through another to first destroy you. And then if this doesn't directly work, at least they'll distract you, slowing you down to the point where you can hardly be effective for anything else in the war. You get what I'm saying? They'll attack you with the things they have control over. When they can't get you with that, they attack you with other things that they have control over. Attacks then shift to those around you. If they can't get you or get your spouse, they go after your kids, your friends, your associates, other businesses that suddenly and unexpectedly stop talking to you at all. Then on your own, then onto your own stuff. The water supply, the gas, the internet, the cell phone. Suddenly these things become a problem. The car, the yard, Wednesday night poker game with the boys. When all that doesn't work, they poison your dog. That's what they did with me. This is always the way you must fight the attacks, the only way, the godly way, by seeing them for what they really are, then placing the light of your attention on them. Just like we've talked about with sickness, affliction, infirmity. Realize the godly, spiritual aspects of the attacks. God places truth on them like spotlights, chasing the darkness away. Then the damage that they may have acquired, especially from their long past attacks, we must clean up with the many tools God has given us, which we talk about, and I will talk about again, not in this video, but in others. And learn, even grow from the experience. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So why do I mention this stuff above, not asking for sympathy or maybe regret, but actually because they're treasures. Every attack is a treasure that has ever happened as an opportunity to grow and get stronger. In this way, it gives us all new grounds, new battlefields, a few new freed villagers, sleepwalkers who suddenly have a clue. Another poor soul who has been wrongfully or sometimes willfully locked up in their prison, a prison of a system constructed by them, reinforced by the lies, them being them, reinforced by the lies of the bars we then allow to hold us at prisoners. We allow. We have often become ignorant to the many keys with which we will not only unlock the prison once and for all, but may very well knock the whole dang house of cards down in one single titanic proportional God truth. And that's true. There we have it. As time sails on week after week and we slowly sail right into the dark seas of the impending storm, We all see it clearly before us. One would wonder which travail will be next and how long before they come knocking right on our very door. The travails, we talked about it. Sure, picking was much easier years ago when nobody hardly cared. Censoring was something that only happened in those other countries. Or people believed in the course of action. The government, the media, really, for the most part, people talked about truth, didn't they? Okay, forget about the government. But for the rest, they did believe that people, for the most part, told truths, at least sometimes. Scary things like witches or blood sacrifices were just things, a fairy tale or Hollywood meant to scare children or laugh about, as people put them in the same category as Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Freddy Krueger, Hillary in her birthday suit. With increasingly high stress and more dire consequences, aka threats, we are put to the test almost daily to basically again and again choose sides. That's what happens. We are forced more and more to choose sides and admit, almost without the fear of prosecution, our belief in God and stand against actions, policies, statements, or people who we know deep down do not have our best interests in heart, but in fact wish us harm, or at least, at the very least, want to control us. But today, if you're not being asked more and more frequently to choose sides, then I would wonder about the actual business you happen to be engaged in and why the dark side, the dark state, the dark stank is so interested in you continually, unabated, doing what you have been doing for so long without challenge. It's your business, but if you're not being challenged, I'd be wondering about stuff. If your business, your workplace was not shut down, and it doesn't seem to have been hindered at all by the scamdemic, then why? Then I might ask myself, what am I doing? What are they doing that seems to benefit the dark state? So much that they are kept open when everything else is sent away to solitary confinement, everyone else. And we are at war. This is a prison, okay? You know, the people during the wartime that were turncoats and actually worked for the Nazis, and they were those guys that walked around with a little hat, and they still had the armband on, and they were the ones that made sure everybody followed the rules. They went to the death camps just the same as everybody else. Yeah. Ultimately, they lost their little hat. Okay, let's go back to what we're talking about. So where did I leave off here? Okay. We are at war, not to mention what is not for me is against me. Hey, I didn't say it. Jesus said this himself. Let me repeat that one. What is not for me is against me. He said it, not me. I can tell you how many of my colleagues I've heard say they would never, ever, no matter what, take the treatments they have often prescribed and apply directly to others. Talking about doctors who give treatments, who have flat out told me they would never take this stuff or give it to their own children, especially when it came to the more dramatic so-called terminal illnesses, C word. And I'm not talking about comorbid. I'm talking 19. I'm talking about CAN, canker sore. Long before the comorbid came along, comorbid 19, you know what I'm talking about. If they didn't do it themselves or to their loved ones, but didn't mind taking pay to do it to others, and in many cases more pay than usual, a lot of pay, then they are no less, in my opinion, than ghouls who made the shit in the first place. So there you have it. One thing is for sure. What you cannot do is save your own skin from prosecution of profit or save your job, but be willing to harm others. Allow others to be harmed or ignored altogether by sticking your head in the sand. They're just going to jab you in the ass when you're looking anyway. When you're not looking, they're just going to, your head's in the sand. There you go. Plus, if you're not actually one of those dirty deeds, doing the dirty deeds, only the one watching silently from the sideline, or worse yet, supporting the action with your own tertiary contributions out of sight, out of mind, then you're just as guilty as of the heinous act, regardless if you are the getaway driver or some lab assistant, dumbass assistant, far removed in some satellite's office somewhere, back alley, Hollywood film storage closet, writing and sending orders to Wuhan for some more dried white rabbit baby blood. So you, like me, my dear patriots, must examine very closely what exactly they are telling you they want you to do. Remember, it's their company, it's their payroll, it's their rules. And if they say you have to take, hey, don't bitch and moan. Quit. Stand up, fight. Report them. Do whatever you need to do. If it's an insurance company you're working for, if it's the big pharma and you're taking your paycheck from them, you can't bitch and moan when they want you to take the jab. Dumbasses. Anyway, I'm not saying that these people are dumbasses, but what do you think? That they're not going to make you take the jab when they're the ones producing it in the first place? Okay. Fear of man. Fear of man. And if you take their 30 pieces of silver, don't bitch about it. When they ask you to go out and sacrifice some innocent child, or worse yet, if that's possible, your own. Fear of man. I'm going to tell a little story here. I looked up out of the window of my car. Shadows of the past press hard against her heart, denying me my many blessings. And as I trifle from the daunting task of meeting new people, great are the giants that hold back the children of the living God from touching the gifts God would so greatly place in their hands. Plenty strong was the fear as it cast a shadow with her dark tentacles pulling at every part of my belly, my being, my soul. Not only allowing me to even leave this car, this one particular time, I'm sitting in this car. Sitting in a driveway like some bored taxi driver, buying time until his fare came back. I was already thick into the gifts of God's blessing by this time. Many gifts a man might see as he but stumbles on the path of our glorious Father. When you witness gift after gift given in such miraculous ways, feeling the glorious bounty, how could someone possibly turn their face, or worse yet, hide from the meeting yet another great gift? But such a man was I, no correction, having no problem meeting people I felt comfortable with. The unstimulated, the unchallenged, ever purposeful, unable to prompt inner growth, basically anyone that kept me from wallowing in the dirt. I so fervently served for years. For those kind of people, I had no trouble knowing. Maybe it was because I was so secure at where I was at the time. Quite secure. That it was where I was yet going, which prompted this scary, exciting, and challenging sight. But step out, look into the face, not even the great confrontation of the eyes of someone who actually might press and ignite the spirit within me, which so desperately tries to shine out. No, I should just sit in the car and let my mother visit her hidden prayer room she so eagerly spoke of. Yeah, we were driving back from Colorado, and she had to stop to meet this guy, see this room. She didn't know him, didn't even have his phone number, but she heard from her friend that she had to see this room. I'm not going in. No way. I didn't even want to stop. It's like, but my mom can be relentless. So she begging, pleading, demanding, all right, I'll stop. 5 minutes. I'm staying in the car. When all fear was gone, what was that still remained? Pride is all I had. That's all I need. The confused sense of someone or something seeming different, too strange to risk yet another change in my rapidly fluctuating life at this time. Could this lowly feeling, this whispering voice, this dark lurking creature hiding under the bed of my youth or in the dark closet peering out at night, could this be the fear of man? What could possibly a fear of man, hearing words spoken of another, his mother's wishes to meet, being told he's a Masonic Jewish man, a man who believes in Christ, Jewish man who believes in Christ, who built this hidden room that people could stay free of charge, free of any cost, just rest their head from the worries and torments of the world and soul. Okay, he also told people on more than one occasion that he has this chair that Jesus sits in, but haven't I on more than one occasion shared the two occasions I actually saw Christ? So how can I blame him for saying that? But there you have it still. Bar me from any reservations as to eccentricity or my own trepidations to change. There remains but one figure between standing on the positive side of the recently crossed riverbank and the further venturing into the promised land, and that is a giant proportions of that would dwarf the Goliath himself. A giant stands there. He stands there, and you're afraid. Giant standing there, stopping me from crossing the river to go to the promised land. You get what I'm saying? I say dwarf him because the fear is amplified by a lifetime's constant bombardment of all the senses, brainwashing out of a child any and all uniqueness, individualities, personal potential, any qualities that might lend a person to believe they are special, created for a unique purpose in this world. That's what the giants do. They do that. One possibility, somewhere deep in the soul lies the hurt that found its way into my young life. Most like sleeping in a perfectly created, gently, sweet, adorned room, soft in its construct, and mild shades and bright, tender hues. Pastel-colored nursery of a child's heaven should only be filled with tenderness, love, and compassion. Light shining through the cascading streams of soft, lighted colors, warm blankets, and cuddly bears with puppy dog eyes. Inviting a feast of hugs and kisses, mimicking those given in abundance by adoring, caring parents. Secured in the furnishings of a loving rocker or a sweet bed safe from dangers. A picture of God's intent for this young life. Yet, the dark mold slithers its way into the crevices of the unguarded word of inadvertent neglect and has rumbled small cracks into the foundation, most likely at the base of this young house. What I'm trying to describe here is my house. All these beautiful rooms that my parents and God created, my parents nurtured, and God created. But there's the cracks in the foundation. That's where the mold comes in. That in which still no way shows its evil head, talking about the mold here, until it's grown through the walls, ultimately bursting out of its dark confines. Demons can take on any form, using all the created images of God has placed on this earth and then warping them into a sinister use, riding the coattails of a neglectful father or a resentful mother, dragging in like dirt under the feet of a wolf who peers through the cracked windows, hungry for the flesh to devour. Minds of small children misled and shaken by the very people trusted to impart truth. All along their hearts cry out, deep down in they know the same truth they have realized, at least since they were very little. Woe to them that caused these little ones to fall, for it would be better for him if he had a millstone hung around his neck and cast into the abyss. Let's examine the dark mold for just an instant. Starting out as the smallest spores, incomprehensibly tiny, insignificant, even fragile, that with such an insignificant creature with stature so minute compared to a man or a woman for that matter, they could wreak havoc onto the life and purpose of said child. This mold could. A man could lay it to waste with a single motion, such as the difference in strength. And it's not until it grows that any damage can actually be inflicted. And only then, if remain hidden like a coward it is, it creeps through the small imperfections of our homes, the mistakes, the stress fractures caused by outward imposed pressures, of our home, not its. For it has to steal that which is not, which is ours by design. It needs to despoil nutrients from the house, taking from the structure those parts that are meant for support, meant by God to help with the child's growth: wood beams, wood floors, insulation, parents, family, friends, the church, the school. And then it eats at them slowly, almost undetectable for years, interlacing its black roots throughout the frame of its structure. Oh, by the way, it has to be near water, life-giving water, that which was created for the purpose of good, encompassing health, growth, nutrition, healing, cleansing. Water is stolen and it turned to its own dark purpose to facilitate rotting and make more room for more of its dark self, ever greedy, ever hungry, slimy, stinky, the worst kind of foul blackness, taking that which is designed for good, like the church, and interweaving guilt and judgment, forging ideals that separate, push people away, kill, even stifle, instead of reaching out in love, forgiveness, grace, and tenderness as interpreted, as intended. The dark pulls back into its dark recesses, sucks the water in, and then converts it to filth. What was purest, clean, clear, fresh, conceived by the very heart of the Father, when her water was intended for wrapping warm, comforting arms around this small boy child, pulling his arms close to her in a soft, secure grip of loving tenderness, holding this young Son of God close against her bosom, safe from the loneliness that this life would speak to his ear. How could such something so good, so true, ever be turned? Some of the darkest, most sinister attacks come right out of the swaddling of those closets, and intended for the most good, such as church, doctors, family. Children of pastors, persecuted by homes riddled with dark cracks, have had the greatest of difficulties. I've known many of those. For the various institutions that were designed to help them became the jailers, holding them in their secret cells, far from you and deep under the ground from detection. But greater is the calling to those who have had the greatest challenges in life. The veins of mold run so deep through some structures, often a complete bulldozing is the only beginning of the cleansing that must surely occur. Thank God he made the bulldozers as well, and they're under his call. Black hole mold hides from the light. It is attracted to the dark, and it grows in damp places, hiding only its face from the life-giving light. But if the light shines on it, its entire existence dries up and withers. By the time the darkness finally starts showing its face to the light, the amount of infestation is so great, the bold is its defiance to even the light. Only a complete destruction and reconstruction can save the home. I've known people that have had to do that. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, by the way, its spores are deadly. People can die long before it's discovered. But remember, my dear brothers and sisters, the light is there. It's everywhere. It is our walls that the shadow lurks within. Those same walls that holds us back from getting us out of that chair and claiming the full discovery of the gift God would have given us. They are the walls that stop us from seeing God's face in every place, in every gift. Her sweet hands around ours, in ours. I say her, meaning the gift. God is him. The gift is her. It's our own house that keeps the light from shining into the dark places. Take down the veils, open the shades, make the walls transparent as crystal and gold, and the darkness must die. Funny thing about gold. I wrote this 15 years ago, and then shortly after, I opened a National Geographic, and they discovered that if they could ever make gold 100% pure, take out every impurity, it was clear as glass. That was interesting. Tear down the walls, build those built by our parents, or our existence, our experience, the world, ourselves, doctors. And only then can the cool spring breezes, the very breath of God, his words blow through the finally lit halls of God's glory. My desire to keep hidden, to remain behind the veil, sit in my car almost cost me one of the most significant blessings of my life. To meet such a powerful man, a sweet teacher, a blessed friend, an officer in his army, beckoning to another, come put out your hand, he'd say, here, hold out your hand. Funny how mold works. He's not the mold, by the way. Mold is keeping me in the car. But there is another possibility. It may not have been mold that kept me in the car. An influx of a specialist into the battlefield, the enemy mustering at the edge of the clearing, within safe retreating distance from the trees, can at times represent an almost overwhelming opposition, especially when the new young warrior to the battlefield has allowed years of assembly to accumulate. I ponder the question asked of me only hours ago as I relate and raise statements of frustrations I've heard more and more from believers, truthers. Why do my efforts to fight obviously persecuting thoughts and temptations seem to progress without effect? Understanding the enemy is the key to ultimate hope and realization of victory. Going into battle daily for cleaning out of the lurking enemy within the forests of our mind can be time-consuming and somewhat frustrating, especially early on, for those of great calling, of which anyone reading this is. I'm sure with any confidence granted me by the keys from above to unlock these dormant rooms would reveal the fact that many are the enemy that have been assigned to pester, tempt, ridicule, frighten, and distract, and even inflict a young potential officer in his army to thwart him or her from the greater task at hand. Perhaps even a century of enemy troops, 100, stand between the defeat and eventual confrontation with the leader, the centurion. I am legion. They gave it up. That directs the rest. Getting rid of these directing cowards is the key in taking dominion in the second heaven within the mind. Coffee time. But let us, for the sake of literal content, assume that our young believer, you, represented in this story, have already been diligently cleaning your house. Stepping onto the battle plane and taking the scene before me, first it is necessary to take in the structure of what I see. The battlefield is always a place of destruction. After the sickness, after it attacks, you're left with the battlefield, a place of destruction. It's the place where we put to death those things that keep us from the victory or dominion of our own house in entirety. We are supposed to be the dominion of our house and through us, God. Okay? Dark is the soil from the rich deposits of fertilizer of the many deaths of sin and self that have already been preceded. It doesn't take an Einstein to know that the darker the soil, the more fertile and the greater the garden of the soil will produce. Oh yes, granted, we are given leadership of our own house, and Jesus, recognized an undisputed Son of the living God, God personified, came to this earth for one purpose, to grant us the ability and the way back to the Father as a payment of our debt. He has been given rule. But we still have to make a choice, each and every one of us, for each and every dirty thing we have called our own. Face them, identify them, and drive them out. Christians can sin. For that, you need to look no further than the author of this article. That means armor up, go into battle, find them, make them identify themselves, and attack. If they don't go running with their tails tucked, screeching like stuck pigs, they do. It's true. I've seen it. Then you just slaughter them. And while today's assignment is not fully exploring the tactics attacking posture, strategies, armaments, and even available troops the enemy might throw at someone, sicknesses and all that, how to fight them. We'll get into that later. Or before. We've done it before as well. We will, for the sake of redundant reading limitations, assume that said warrior has been to the battlefield on more than a few occasions, cleaning house for the most part of the majority of the enemy troops aside, sent to keep him or her from gaining and granting dominion over their house, and also displaying said house in full clarity with the face of God. So there you have it, a house cleansed, swept through more than the average bear's attempt to power spray, and the marked results, a significant reduction of attempts of the enemy to try to make you fall. The more you clean, the less they attack. Guaranteed. Will often lead to lulls in action whereby attacks and lurking enemies seem difficult to find. You get these these places where suddenly you're not being attacked at all. The enemy does, for that matter, have an enumerated number of troops. That means he has a specific number. They're not unlimited. He can't create anymore. And while the account may be very difficult for us mortals to wrap our minds around, they are still limited all the same. The enemy knows to waste troops on futile efforts such as to harass one of the Father's officers is no more effective than taking down said warrior with a snowball thrown from a great distance in the blazing warmth of the clear summer sky in Phoenix. Snowball's chance in hell of actually doing anything. Yeah, it is hell around here, especially with the audit. Of course, that's not to say we won't occasionally take a shot. That's not to say he won't occasionally take a shot. The enemy might decide to send in a specialist. That happens too. Scene. There sits the young warrior basking in the sun of this green-grassed hill, sword casually laying at his side, at his feet. Not out of neglect, but because of the need to pick it up and slice the throats of the enemies, incapacitate them, and bind them and cast them out like yesterday's old newspapers. This actually has become less of a challenge and more of just an occasional fox hunt when he has a notion. Oh, he'd be the first to admit there's a couple of foxes probably out there still causing havoc. But for the most part, the hen house has been free of harassment lately. And when there's a very accurate shot standing guard, foolish is the fox that attempts his aim. Much is the fruit of a calm hen house, constantly and steadily flowing production of good life-giving gifts. We have chickens, by the way. My wife loves chicken eggs, so yeah, that's quite a fun thing. Listening to that rooster at freaking 3 o'clock in the morning. Peaceful days and a warrior lying in the grass, one might say his bottom has even impressed into the slope the contour of a chair. His eyes and hand examining one of the perfect flowers the Lord has graced our young child with. Gently must he consider the tender flower, because fragile is her petals. And while he is clearly a lion standing a vigilant guard within, ready at any moment to pounce into action at the Father's call, so does he also have the Lamb of Christ, the Lamb who has branded this man's heart with tenderness, compassion, gentleness, learning in sync every move of battle intertwined with a method and manner of healing. Balance is always the key for success. Can't be a great warrior if you don't become a healer. True. Suddenly, as gently as the sweet scent of moaning flowers wrap her slender fingers around his heart, a soft, warm barrier descends upon him, completely engulfing his upper torso, distinctly strong around his head, arms, and chest. A supernatural armor seems to descend. Usually precipitates something very godly is about to happen. Sort of tension descends. But this gift God grants is a reactionary calling out of his armor. For just as Jesus said in Luke, I will tell you, if these should hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out. His eyes lift up, but a moment from his careful examination of the flower, he glances towards the horizon resting above the slope of the opposing hill, noticing directly the brown haze that seemed to also descend upon the land. It kind of looks weird outside. Sounds familiar. It's the dust of the footfalls of that which is mustering, pressing the hill, gathering for some kind of attack. As the opposing horde begins to squeeze in on the territory of the young warrior, but no less important than that, the area of the land he has been assigned to protect, his post, his family. The warrior, his foxhole. The warrior remains in safe guard and comfort of the recline in his now moss-touched chair. For the keen sight has shown him that there's the giant among them. There is a giant up there. But there's no immediate danger. They're still far off. They're far away. But there is the question of the giant. Not that giants hold much grip on him in the fear department they once did, for he slew more than a few of their dirty brothers, and with each, and the ease of disposal increases. So with each one that goes down, it gets easier. But there still remains the unknown factor, and it's still a bit distant to get a good eye on exactly what's out there. That unknown lends its own factors of uncertainty, and it is a giant. Let us further examine as Jesus spoke about these words, speaking in further context that might apply. Also in Luke. As he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city and he wept over it. He said, if you, even you, had known on this day what would bring you peace, but now it's hidden from your eyes. The days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you and hem you in on every side. They will dash you to the ground, you and your children within the walls, and they will not leave one stone on another because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you. But praise God, Jesus immediately also gives us a solution. For in this very next scripture, also in Luke, when Jesus entered the temples, he began to drive out those who were selling. It is written, he said to them, my house will be a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of robbers. See, what happens here is he goes in and he sees these people that aren't doing what they were supposed to do, that are doing work that they weren't supposed to. And he basically tells them, listen, it's coming. And if you don't get your act together, it's going to be not good. Not a stone will be left unturned. And you're going to have your heads dashed, tossed. Oh, back to our young prince sitting in the grass. Like I said, every alert is he for any and all attacks. Having the lion's strength and stature also means he has all his senses. But it is the moment, and he realizes this foul smell of something is lurking close. So he gets a little bit of a different alert, a smell. Uh-oh, a demon. He rose quickly to avoid the attack that now slices the air like a snake's hiss just above his head and strikes the ground only moments before where his head happened to sit. A scout dispatched by the giant to deliver a head wound of fear that would no doubt be paralyzed, if not defeated, even a fraction of a lesser warrior. But such is the seasoned veteran to these feeble attempts, that it was but a fraction of the moment before the true author of that cat piss smell that was recognized. And likewise, only a marginal evading move with consequential circle slice, and yet another frog-faced demon's head goes tumbling down the hill, and the warrior's jaw is set in determined indignation. Got him. And with a smidgen of smile and the lion has completely engulfed him in his ferocity and confidence. His eyes are set on the prey that awaits across the plain. What is amazing is the froggy's head, as the froggy's head goes rolling down the hill, cascading casually down the hill, the entire troop, including the giant, come to an immediate and abrupt halt. And they suddenly, frozen by the blast of the lion's roar that just crashed through their dark senses, are frozen like pillars of salt, with one exception, and that's the shaking of their knees can clearly be heard even from here. Running is their only chance. That's what happens. Get rid of the fear, and the rest of them run. That's how it works. I look up out of my car, back to my story, at the smile of the strangest Jewish man I've ever seen, draped in his purple robe, sweet, joyful smile mapping across his face as far as east is from west. White hairs like the rays of the sun sticking out from his balding head, encircling his loving face like a streaming aurora. Oh, by the way, that's my wife's name, Aurora, not her real name. That's what she used to call herself. Because, anyway. Difficult it is to make out any of these qualities, though. Past the sparkling diamonds shining from his eyes, so deep, so much wisdom and purpose that a man comes directly to the realization that many are the volumes that couldn't contain but a fraction awaits within. Come in for a bit, he says, getting out of the seat, facing challenges, fears, giants in this realm or another is a magnificent calling we should all but feel honored to take. Great are the giants that stand in our way, greatly microscopic in comparison to what we've been given. We all have our own chairs. We all have our own chairs we long and fear to leave. And that was one of mine. So many times have I had to face my own choice, to run, to take it, to fight, each pressing, often not in my timing or choosing, but with each I made drastic choices that result in the utter destruction of my house, business, life. So many times I've been put to the choice. So many times have I been asked, should I do this or should I do that? Knowing that if I tell them to do if I make the godly advice, it's going to cost me. Those physical things that I held dear, I realized I pressed through these stories, these stones in my own distant past, these stepping stones. I pressed on. An inconveniently better option, a better gift awaited after choosing God instead of the fear of man. Had I not made those choices, every seemingly small, I am with him choice. Yes, I am with him. When I find myself again at the burn barrel having to make the choice of right, even though I know it will probably cost me my home, persecution, job, my life. But thank God he gave me the strength to choose wisely, for it was through these many choices he steps out of my car, telling a patient they should not take the chemo especially when they've been told it's pre-cancer chemo. Maybe to avoid some attack that might come in the future. Knowing I'll lose my job for it, thank God I made all those acknowledgments at the burn barrel. Otherwise, I would have never met my wife. Yeah, all of those choices led to relationships that led to me meeting a woman on the other side of the planet. The love of my life, the greatest gift I could ever dream of. Yeah. Sorry, this guy is taken by a smart and sexy Polish girl. Yeah, that's why I wear that shirt. Anyways, that is my thought of the day. The fear of man. Don't let the fear of man stop you from choosing what is right. When you find yourself again at the burn barrel and they tell you You got to do this. Take the, otherwise, this is going to happen. You have to deny Christ and go give the to kids. Otherwise, this is going to happen. You know what? All I know is when you're at the burn barrel, what happens in the future may or may not happen. But what is happening there is the choice. And we are more and more and more constantly and aggressively placed at the burn barrel. You know what the burn barrel is, right? Where Peter follows Jesus. And then he suddenly found himself warming his hands at the burn barrel. And then they look at him and they go, some woman said, "Hey, I know you. You're the guy that follows him. You're one of his followers." No, that's not me. "I know you." Another guy said, You're that Peter guy. He follows him around. You're one of his buddies." "Hey, it's one of him. This is one of them." "No, man. Hey, shut up. That's not me. That's not me." And the woman again. Yeah, it is. It's you. I saw you. Shut up. Damn you. It's not me. I don't know him. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The rooster. Oh my God. And he betrayed. He denied Christ. He would have to live with that for the rest of his life. Oh, he was forgiven. Okay. He knew the moment he did it, what he was doing. And he was angry at himself for doing it. But, okay, we are all brought more and more to the burn barrel as things progressively get more close. And if you are brought to the burn barrel, if you ignore it, bury your head in the sand and hope it disappears, it might disappear that time. You're just going to be brought again a couple days later, and a couple moments later, and a couple seconds later as it gets closer. Eventually, you're going to have to choose. But guess what? Every time you choose wrongly or ignore, you still go along this path. When you miss out on the blessings that you would have had you chose right. Choosing right, even when it means potentially losing your job. If they want to take your job because you're doing what's right, fuck them, let them take it. Okay? I've lost so many jobs. I've had so many paychecks. I've had so much lands taken from me because I chose God. It's all right. You know, God says, put your treasures in heaven, because where your treasures are, there your heart will be also. He also says, for everyone who's given up a house, a farm, a child, a wife, not that you're supposed to toss your wife away or your child. No, when you've lost them because of the Heavenly Father, because you chose what's right, and you still paid the price. They took your stuff. They took your family. You will get 100 times more in this life and the next. That's a promise. And I know one person who always keeps their promise, and it's not the Lannisters. No, it's God. Yep. All right, my friends. I hope that you like this video. I hope you subscribe to this video. I hope you join my good friend Nino on Nino's Corner TV. He is busting his ass to bring you guys truths. And it seems that this fear of man holds a lot of people back. Don't be afraid. Jesus said more than anything in the Bible, fear not. More than love your neighbor, more than pick up your friend out of the ditch, more than go to church. He said, fear not, more than anything. If he's telling us not to fear, we better not fear. We don't need to worry. Can't even add a hair on our head or a... Really? All this worrying, I couldn't add a hair on my head? Dog, I guess I've been doing the wrong thing. I was really worried when I started losing my hair at 22 years old. A lot of good the worry did. Just lost more hair. Anyway, my book, Quantum Ascension. If you write me, paulerpeter.com or posture.is.everything@gmail.com, you can buy them directly from me and I'll send you a signed copy. Not a regular price, but I'll send them to you, signed copy. If you're one of Nina's insiders, I'll give you a discount. Yeah, 10%, 20%, I don't know. Just call me and we'll talk about it. Heal Yourself for God's Sake. My other book. I've got others too, but these are the ones I'm promoting. Anyways, I hope that you have a blessed day, and I hope to see you soon again. I hope you like our new channel. This is Peter and Anna Cola, our YouTube channel, not the Peter Cola channel. That one only has a video of my dog on it. I don't know how to work this stuff yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. So bear with me as we learn together. Again, like I said, you have on paulerpeter.com all the contact information. I would love to talk to certain people. Simon Parks, Charlie Ward, Mel K. I'm going to be talking with Nicholas Benjamins pretty soon. We've already scheduled that. Jacko, he's a man. If you guys know these people or can get them in touch with me, I'd love to talk to them. I'd love to, talk with them, interview at them, whatever, just talk. I don't have to necessarily be on TV. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I just want to talk to them. Truthers, generals. I like that. Bless you. Take care. Bye. All right.